I'd like to call a meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Present.
Councilmember Woodard.
Here.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Here.
And Mayor Pro Tem Wall and Mayor Matsumoto Wright both asked to be excused.
Move to excuse the mayor and the mayor pro tem.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Moving right along, we got the late changes to the agenda. City Manager.
Thank you, Councilmember. One request for late change tonight to remove the public hearing and discussion on the multifamily tax exemption. I received some new information Tuesday, and I want to make sure that's fully vetted before I bring it back to council. I would recommend a motion to move the item date certain to December 19th.
Thank you. Could I get a motion to move number 5 to December 19th?
I move that we move agenda item number 5 to December 19th.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll see the multifamily tax exempt code amendment on December 19th. Thank you.
Thank you. No further changes.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Are there any public comments?
There are none.
Yes, there is. Just kidding. All right.
Mr. Blake Schmidt, you have 5 minutes.
That's right.
She's all powerful, John.
Let's test that mic out, see if it's working. Test your microphone.
Hey,
Oh, very good. Okay, you have
Okay.
5 minutes. Thank you.
so I'm John Blakesmith, 4905 219th Street Southwest of Mountlake Terrace. So I'm kind of here, I want to praise the new code enforcement girl. I was telling Mr. Ryan earlier, I was in here getting a permit for my sewer, $400 if you can believe that. That's way too much. So my contractor said. Might think about that. Anyway, and Chrissy came out, is that her name, Chrissy Swanson? And I says, you know, this lady next to me has got this big rat problem that's spreading down the street. Something's got to be done. So I left here, and Laura was the girl's name, was right there. I left here, did a honeydew at the store for my mom. By the time I got home, that girl was at the neighbor's house. That's good service. But she has absolutely no power to enforce the problem. She said, I talked to her and she says, they said they have somebody coming every 2 months to take care of the problem. Well, it's not taking care of the problem. 3 houses down from me now has a guy come. And 2 weeks ago, I see a dead rat squished in the street down a little ways. Looks real good. And last week, I see another exterminator that has a box truck backed in a driveway way down the street by 48th. So they're spreading, just like this guy told me they would. But it doesn't make any sense. If what they're doing is not working, something else has to be done. But that girl has no authority to tell them that. You guys got to give her the authority, or somebody's got to go talk to them. Because I don't know about you, but I don't like rats running around. And I'm not sure, but I think the one way down the street had that big box fan. I think they were pulling insulation from under the house. I don't know if that's true or not. Just my thought. I'll stop and ask her one day. Because I know the ladies that have the problem had to have their insulation pulled out because it smelled like feces. And what else? They also have dogs that bark all the time. Maybe I've mentioned this to you. Every day for 30 years, very few days do I not get to listen to them bark for a half hour, 45 minutes. So I called the ladies in charge of, is it animal control, I believe. And she went and talked to them, and for 2 days it was all right. They started barking again. So I called her and said, it's going on still. You can hear them in the background when I'm on the phone. Well, she said, I can't do anything. They're not barking that much. They're only barking a half hour. I says, for 30 years they're barking a half hour. What's wrong with you? And I know I'm not the only one that called about it. My neighbor on the other side, who, if you rode with me, I'm sure I said, his name's Joe. He called her. She didn't call him back. That's not good. That's bad. Anyway, so I was online tonight, and it says, in 6.30.130 under nuisances, B5, it says, howling, yelps, whines, barks, as to disturb.
Could you
a
speak in the mic,
or
John?
people in.
Oh,
John, God, could you hear me?
There you go. Yeah, it's recorded, so we.
Yeah, could you hear what I said just now?
No, just start
Okay,
over.
it says, section 6.30.130 nuisances, B-5, says howls, yelps, whines, barks, as to disturb a person or the neighborhood, as to be to an unreasonable degree. They gotta do something about it. She told me she couldn't do it. Would you like to hear that every day for a half hour? Like in the summer, if you're out on the patio, you gotta go in the house. Or if you got company over, you gotta go in the house. Or if it's like my sister-in-law was over, she told them to go F theirself. That did a little good for a couple days. And like I say, the lady never returned my neighbor's call bitching about those dogs. That's bad. Maybe something could be done. And I'd also like to think, could we get somebody to patrol our street once in a while? Just once a month even. 30 years, and like I told Rick a while ago, I've seen 2 policemen on the street, and they were in the cul-de-sac talking to each other. Never have I seen anybody patrol it outside of that. My neighbor said in the old days when his kid was in high school, they did, but his kid's 45 or 6 years old now. So it doesn't happen on our street. Okay, maybe somebody could do something about that. Just once in a while, you gotta fly the flag. You know what I mean by that? Okay, that's all I gotta say. Thanks, folks.
All right, thank you, John. And
I hope you can do something.
if we could get an email and look up anything for whether it's animal control, health hazard, code enforcement, or just straight out rat control, if we could see what we have for that, and possibly then the dog barking. All right. Thank you. Okay, next, consent agenda. Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem or Councilmember, whatever you are tonight. I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, and we're skipping the next one and going to review interlocal agreement with City of Shoreline for fleet services with our Deputy City Manager, Carolyn Hope.
Good evening, council members. I am here serving in place of our Public Works Director tonight, who's on vacation. So good to see you as representing Public Works again. The fleet services agreement that we have with the City of Shoreline has been in place since 2010. This has been an agreement where our fleet staff take care of Shoreline's vehicles to the best of our ability. Right now, we're not able to service 100% of them, but we do serve a lot of their vehicles. We serve them at a rate that is lower than the commercial rate, but we still cover our expenses, and it is supportive of our labor costs and expenses. So it's a benefit to us as well. We have an agreement that expires at the end of the year, and so we've worked with them to negotiate an amendment to the contract, and it accounts for the increases that we've had in labor and the increases in the costs of materials. The contract does already allow for us to have a 10% upcharge for any major equipment that we have to purchase, because that involves time for the fleet supervisor to coordinate that and find the right materials and so forth. But we did add a small supplies charge to cover some of the smaller items in the shop that we use to service the vehicles as well. So the increases are 11% between 24 and 25 and 16% the following year. This is a 2-year agreement. And I think you've heard already that our Public Works Director is continuing conversations with Shoreline to see what we can do to service more of their vehicles in the future. So we left the agreement a little bit shorter so that we could come back and revisit that later. Let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Sonmore?
Just have two. You said we're below the going rate. What is the going rate out there?
Commercial rates vary significantly, but they're closer to the 200 to 275 range, depending on the type of equipment.
But we're only going to be charging them $121.54 and $133.69.
Yes, and that is a pretty big jump from the previous years.
And what is the total amount that we anticipate to take in the next year?
The past couple of years, we have had about $100,000 in fees from Shoreline. So I would anticipate 11% more probably.
Did you say $100,000?
Oh, 100,000 is about the amount of revenue we've received in the past year or two on average.
So can I ask, since we're on the budget so much last couple months, if the going rate, and we look at comparables, is $200, how come we're only getting $121?
That's the going commercial rate. So if you were to bring it to a private shop. And the whole idea behind interlocal agreements is that we're giving each other fair prices for services. And so we are making a little bit of extra on this, but it's pretty minimal. It's probably less than 10%. So the idea is basically to cover costs and share services with the partnerships.
To cover costs for the city of Shoreline?
No, they're paying for,
Right.
We're getting paid for the service that we provide to cover the labor and all the equipment and supplies. Yeah.
Right, and we may have to increase the people if we get more of a fleet. But I was just wondering, where we need to be so tight on the budget. Who are we contracting with that we're getting deals with that are going in between? I think we're doing something with Linwood, perhaps?
Well, we have an emergency management contract with Snohomish County that we'll be talking about next, and there's no fee for those services. And I'm sure that those services would cost us well over $100,000. There's a ILA coming to you next week for also with the county to do some work for us, but there's a very small fee for that work for Lake Ballinger water quality monitoring, maybe $3,000 a year. So most of our interlocal agreements are very low cost or no cost, depending on the agency that we're working with.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a brief one. This 2-year window is shorter. You mentioned it was shorter than the typical agreement. What's a typical sort of timeframe look like for one of these agreements?
Yeah, sorry about that. Our initial agreement was for 10 years. We amended it in 2020 for 2 years. We amended it in 2022 for 2 years. So we've done 2-year extensions to it. So I think the point is, if we want to renegotiate the agreement to take on more work, to be able to hire additional people and cover their costs, we'd probably rewrite the agreement. So we just thought we would amend it with the same terms and just increase the costs as needed.
Yeah, thank you. And to be clear, add a bit of color to my comments, I think it makes good sense to have a shorter time frame in this period of sort of increasing or ever-changing costs and labor dynamics. So I think I'm supportive of this agreement, and I think it's sensible to sort of have these sort of shorter looks ahead for these types of agreements. So thank you.
Councilmember
For
Sonmore?
bringing that up, because I was thinking just the opposite, because I was wondering, what is our net value gain of working with Shoreline? Because I'm wondering how big it is, and if we're bringing in money, I don't want to lose that stream of money coming in.
I don't believe that's a risk at this point. They are very happy with our services, and they would love to expand the services, and that's the conversation we're in the middle of right now.
Great. Another question?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. And just for the sake of conversation, I think I was thinking just so long as we can regularly update to make sure our costs are covered. That was my main thinking.
And that's exactly the question I wanted to follow up with is, so if we bring in about $100,000, what is the time that we use on those vehicles? How much do we pay our employees for the cost of supplies and our employees? What is our zero-sum game or a sum game for next year? If we get $100,000 and we take out our costs, what are we left with?
I believe we are under 10%, as I said earlier. I have a spreadsheet I can look it up on, but
So we would get, our net gain is $90,000? If it's 10%,
our net gain would be some 10% of the total revenues, likely.
So what do we have? We pay for labor, we pay for the cost of supplies, and you're saying that if it's $100,000, it's only 10% that we pay our employees and the cost of the supplies?
That would be our net revenue, 10% net revenue. Cover it after we cover the costs of everything.
So to clarify, what we charge, what we pay our employees and then add 10% essentially. Is that?
Yeah, we've
that
paid
right?
for all of our costs, the
Yeah.
labor, the equipment, the supplies, and then there'd be about 10% left.
Then add 10% to it. Okay. Okay, any other questions? All right, is this something we're going to be seeing in a future consent agenda?
Yes, we're proposing to add it to the December 19th consent agenda.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you for that report, and let's go to the next one. Review our interlocal agreement with Snohomish County for emergency management services, and again with Deputy City Manager Carolyn Hope.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is an agreement that we also have had in the past. This would be an agreement that would extend our service from the Snohomish County Department of Emergency Management until December 31st, 2026. There is no cost to enter this ILA for the basic services covered in the agreement. There are optional services proposed in an attachment to the agreement, but at this time, after conversations with them, we don't believe we need those services. We have a lot of work to do on emergency management preparations and updates, and we've already started conversations with the county, and we're excited to get going on updating our hazard mitigation plan, reviewing our comprehensive emergency management plan, creating an emergency operations plan, and engaging with them on several training opportunities. They also help coordinate our radio system, both the ham radio setup that we have at the Emergency Operations Center and our new 800 megahertz radio system. So there's a lot of great planning opportunities we have to coordinate with the county and our other partners in the county. including getting ready for the FIFA World Cup Championships that will be held in Seattle and could impact our whole region. So we are recommending that we continue our relationship with the county by signing this ILA, and we would propose to put this on the consent agenda for December 19th as well.
Okay, any questions?
Can you just tell me what the service charge is to the county and when was the last time we updated our plan?
What service charge are you referring to?
Under 7.1, the city shall pay a service charge to the county beginning January 1st, 2025, and as adjusted annually January 1st.
I believe that would be if we were to pay for any additional services. So there's no charge for the main part of this agreement, but if we were to take on any of the proposed work in Schedule C, there's a list of fees in Schedule D, and that's what that clause refers to.
Another question, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you. And thanks, Carolyn, for, sorry, as my voice goes, all of this work, I think this is an important body of work that I appreciate staff revisiting and moving forward with the county. I did have a question, though, in terms of, you said at this point in time, we don't anticipate needing the additional services the county offers. Are those things that we think that there may be a need for in the not too distant future, I guess, as we think kind of long-term about potential increase in costs around this work?
Not during this biennium.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none. And it sounds like you already stated that we'll be seeing this in the future on a consent agenda. So thank you very much. Moving on to the next one, we're going to review the proposed agreement for Teamsters Collective Bargaining Unit with also our Deputy City Manager, Carolyn Hope. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So our Teamsters Local Union 763 covers several divisions of our workforce here at the city. Our agreement with them ends on December 31st of this year. So this year we started negotiating with them in April, and we have come to a point where the union has voted in favor of the terms that are before you. There is a lengthy memo here that describes the changes, but I'll go over some of the highlights for you. In the general agreement, the common clauses, we made some editorial changes. We clarified pay steps and when people, and that's referring to when people are transferred or hired or promoted. There was some unclear language in the contract before, so we wanted to clarify when those types of transitions happen, what happens with the person's pay. We updated the alternative work schedule language. This was really important to the public works maintenance crews. And we did, since this previous agreement was signed, the city has adopted a flexible work schedule policy, which can be used by all employees. But we also came up with some language that would apply to the public works crews, so that the crews would have to agree as a group to work an alternative schedule, and that is to make sure that we can cover the work that needs to be done during the week one way or another. So we would alternate the shifts so that people could work an alternated schedule. So that's in section 6.1 and 28.4 for those details. We also updated the call-out pay terms, clarified days off are only worth 8 hours, no matter what your shift schedule is. And that is similar to what our non-represented groups have in their agreement, in their employee work the personnel policies, sorry. We also added language about who gets paid overtime during special events. We clarified the accumulated leave language to sync with our new pay schedule. Not so new, but it was adopted since this agreement was implemented last. And we updated the leave section to make sure that we're applying to all the applicable laws related to FMLA, PFML, and so forth. Before I move on to the addendums, are there any questions about the common clauses?
Councilmember Sonmore?
Thank you. Do any of these changes affect the overall budget?
All of the changes proposed in this agreement were included in the budget proposal that you,
I thought you just said there were some things that were changed, and that's why you were bringing it back to us at the
I'm
very
sorry?
beginning? Is that what you said?
could you repeat your question? I couldn't
At
hear.
the very beginning, I thought you said you did some additional changes since we had last talked about this.
No.
Any other questions? All right.
Okay,
Thanks.
so for the administrative services addendum, this covers the finance department and our code compliance officer. So we moved the code compliance officer positions from police to the administrative services addendum. We updated language regarding breaks. In the police support services addendum, we updated language about breaks also, and we updated the uniform language. In the maintenance addendum, we just talked about the alternative work schedule that we proposed to make sure that we have people on duty to address all the needs of the city and also could accommodate an alternative work schedule. We also allowed, we proposed to allow a take-home vehicle for the standby duty person. So that's just one person. When they're on standby duty, they can take a vehicle home that's equipped to respond to emergencies. That vehicle is already in our possession. It's not a new acquisition. We also updated the standby duty pay to reflect that of our comparable cities and the uniform pay to account for inflation, which hadn't been adjusted since 2020. And then in Appendix A, which is primarily related to pay, we moved all the work groups to a 7-step pay scale, similar to the non-represented staff. There was a lot of inconsistencies in the previous pay scales and different numbers of grades. Some groups had skipped a step, which caused confusion. So this provides more consistency and across the contract groups. There was a market analysis done for each of the positions, very similar to what we did for the non-represented staff a little while ago. And we found that a few of the positions were pretty far from the market, so we worked to adjust those. We also, there was a maintenance specialist position, which is a part-time position, and we moved that to the same pay band as maintenance worker 1, which meets the market conditions. They do the same work, they're just part-time. And for maintenance worker 2s in Public Works, they were adjusted 1 pay band higher than other maintenance worker 2 staff members because they're required to have commercial driver's licenses and other specialty training in utilities and working in the right-of-way. The maintenance worker 2 and lead positions are now eligible for journeyman status if they worked for the city for 15 years and in their position for 10 years. And that would be a premium pay and would not be compoundable. We also created a range of pay for the lead positions, which before was just 1 pay rate. There was no range, nowhere for movement. And right now we don't have any leads, but we are looking into that for the future. And then ultimately our goal was to move everyone to a point where they were within 5% of the market. And in the future, they would receive 3.5% COLA increases for the term of this contract. There was also some premium pay allowed for storm events. And again, language that there's no pyramiding of premium pays. So that is a lot of information. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council members, Sonmore?
If we could just fix the date on the contract in the footer as well. And then can you tell me the overall cost to the budget by implementing this new contract?
The overall cost of the contract? The major costs associated with this are in the salaries, and it's close to 6%, I believe, on average.
Employees do we have in the Teamsters?
I can get you that information.
I can look it up in my budget book. So my last question would be, this has already been put into the 2-year budget, so it's already been accounted for that 6%, and there won't be any increases in the next
That's right.
years?
Yes. We have about 37 people in the union right now.
Any other questions? Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, sir. Mine's more of a comment. No, mine is a comment, not more of a. Mine's just a comment. Just wanted to say, although we haven't voted, just congratulations on getting this far. Everyone involved. I've come from a long line of Teamster family, so I know how hard it is to get to this point. And if I heard you correctly, our actual Teamsters have voted on this, and I know that that in and of itself is a journey, which means that there's been a lot of give and take, and I'm now hearing what our give and take will be. So just wanted to acknowledge that a lot of work went into getting us to this point, and I appreciate that.
Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Thank you, sir. Councilmember. Yeah, I'll echo Councilmember Woodard's comments and say ditto to coming from a Teamster family, but also think it's worth giving you all kudos, staff and the negotiating teams kudos for addressing some of these sort of, I think, underlying issues with previous contracts, and or if nothing else, really looking hard at sort of the uniformity and consistency of this contract, and taking into account, all these sort of, whether they're extraneous events or extra trainings or just the texture and sort of variety of skills that and experience that our employees bring to the table. I think it's really good business for us as a council to, and you as city manager and deputy city manager to have taken these things into account, because we have a small but mighty team here at the city, and I think it's encouraging to me to know that you're sort of making sure that all of these sort of bits and pieces that form up the day-to-day of the city's work are being taken into account, and folks are getting paid what they're worth I could say a lot more, but I'm pleased with the approach here and be happy to vote on it.
Councilmember Sonmore?
I'm trying to think where the sentence starts. Maybe it's the whole thing, but the last two sentences, officer and casual employees are expected to perform more than 116th the hour of the full-time employee in the calendar year and the calendar quarter of the same year. I just didn't know what that meant.
Let me look at one other version of this document to see if that was some kind of editorial mistake.
Which document is this? The agreement or the red line?
The red line agreement.
I'm sorry, I'll have to check into that for you. I don't have an answer for you right at the moment.
Mike?
I
Thanks.
think it said finance coordinator, but it was changed to coordinator finance department. Maybe it's one long, huge sentence that got squished or something.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that, and I can email you with some details.
Any other questions? I'd like to add also that I know working with unions is very time-consuming, so I'm sure the council appreciates all the time put into this. And I especially like how the language was clarified. And so people that work here know exactly what happens, salary schedule, overtime, all these policies and that. So that's really great. It's all up front. So thank you very much. All right.
Thank you. We have an answer for you. Sorry about that.
Okay, sure.
The 1/16th is actually 1/6. So if an employee works 1/6 of the hours of a full-time employee, they would be in the union. If an employee works 1/6 of the hours of a full-time equivalent position, they would be in the union.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. We are now to review the resolution by the Salary Commission for council salaries. Presenting will be our city manager, Jeff Knighton.
Thank you, Councilmember, and council members. Stumbled there a little bit, sorry about that. So according to Mountlake Terrace Municipal Code 2.140, Salary Commission has to be convened every 5 years to examine the salary of council members. And we convened the Salary Commission earlier this year, had some great volunteer participation to do that. The group convened starting in July and met once a month through October, and then held the required public hearing on November 18th to consider the outcome and to solicit public comment. So throughout that process, the commission looked at pay rates of comparable cities, differing types of government, forms of government around the area, responsibilities, population size, all the data points. They considered benefit packages for council members and whether that would be appropriate. and ultimately decided, as you can see on the memo here, to forward a finding of increase of 3% per year beginning in January of 2025, and then 3% each January thereafter through 2029. And at that point, we will convene another salary commission to consider the next 5 years. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. There is no need for a vote on this by members of council. The way the code is structured, this is simply findings that are advanced, and we're sharing those with you and making sure that everybody understands what the commission looked at, considered, and then what their findings were. So happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I can just put it in perspective. So 20 years ago, it would have been $290 a month. So it just gives you some perspective. And we used to not have a salary commission. We did it on our own. So if you voted on it before people got into office, you didn't get the, some people didn't get the raise. So at least everyone's getting it at the same time. But thank the commission for that. And and I remember you said this was already put into the budget already. You already knew the amount.
It was included in the adopted budget for 25-26.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we're going to move to our city manager report. City manager.
Thank you, council members. A couple things to mention. Tomorrow night is our tree lighting, starting at 6 p.m. out here in the plaza. The tree is already out there. I'm sure many of you saw the logos that have been painted. They look great. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So that will be a great time as my UNLV Rebels are beating Boise State for the Mountain West Championship. Just had to mention that and throw that out there on the way to the college football playoff. So we're also going to announce a contest, a naming contest for the snowplow names. It's not going to be open-ended. That's been a disaster in other places that we don't want to repeat. So we have picked about 10 names. My favorite at the moment is Austin Plowers, but we'll see how that goes. Public Works crews are going to narrow that down to 5 names, and then we will put that out to the community to vote on. So that should be a fun exercise. And last thing I wanted to mention was next Wednesday on the 11th is our Terrace Talk event. And the Terrace Talk this time will be focused on the Mountlake Terrace Community Academy that we're going to launch that we hope we have significant participation in. Come in for 90 minutes every once a week and learn all about city operations and why we do some of the things we do, which to people sometimes can seem absolutely insane, but there is a reason usually. So you learn about finance, you'll learn about community development, learn about what the city manager's office does, Public Works, all the things that they have to consider and do, and looking forward to that. It will also be the launch of our Community Ambassadors Program. And with that, we will also be announcing recruitment for the Financial Sustainability Task Force, which I know is very important to council. We're doing our best to time all these things so that once the Community Academy ends, we'll be just about the point when the recruitment for boards and commissions opens. So people will have some background in city operations, and if they're interested in volunteering their time, we would love to have them. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Murray.
Thank you. Just a quick one, Jeff. I think one of the questions we've gotten in past years at the tree lighting is just around kind of tentative agenda for kind of the timeline of the evening. Do we have an idea of what that looks like?
We do. I don't have it in front of me. I know the event starts at 6, and I believe the tree lighting itself is at 6:30, but please don't hold me to that.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, sure.
Quick follow-up question. Maybe if we could share that on social media tomorrow, I think that would be helpful for folks. I think particularly when the tree is planning on, because there's performances and all sorts of wonderful things that I know lots of people look forward to coming for. And I think if folks aren't prepared, sometimes they think the tree lighting is at 6 o'clock, and so they rush to get here at 6. And then when it's later, they're like, yeah. So I would love to make sure we're setting expectations appropriately.
We will do that. Thank you.
Can I just ask?
Councilmember Sonmore?
Thank you. What time council needs to be there? And I heard there was a little issue with the choir. It's going to be a lot smaller or something?
I'm sorry. What's going to be smaller?
I don't know if it's Mountlake Terrace, or not, it's not Cedar Way, but the choir is different or something? Did we need any help?
So we do have, Deputy City Manager just looked it up for me and helped me out. So we do have a schedule of events online. And the event itself is between 6 and 7. So it will be lit by 7. The mayor arrives and Santa arrives. I don't see anything here about the choir, however.
Is our mayor going to be here?
She plans to be, yes.
You could get up there and sing, Rick.
Yeah, I'll fill in a few songs. Only if Councilmember Payne Donovan joins me. Do a duet. Kind of like Frank Sinatra. I think they're also looking for a couple hot chocolate pours. If anybody wanted to come and fill in a little on pouring chocolate.
What time do you need?
I think at 6 until they run out.
I'll volunteer.
Okay. To the city manager, when was that Terrace talks? Was that the 11th?
Yeah, December 11th, next Wednesday. I know many of you will be at the Snohomish County General Assembly, but we're hoping for a robust turnout.
And what time's the talk start?
6 o'clock.
6, okay.
And the tree lighting, everything is online under city events on our webpage. So if people want to take a look at that, they can go there.
Great. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. It's time for our council liaison reports. Anybody want to go first? Okay, Council Member Murray.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilmember Ryan. Mine is nice and short, so hope everyone had a nice holiday break. Upcoming, the Seashore Transportation Forum is tomorrow, and we are working on a request to them to put together a letter of support for our RAISE grant application for next year. And then, Carolyn, are we still doing the 7 o'clock meeting on the 18th for the DEI Commission? We are keeping that. Okay, that's what, okay. Yes, okay. And I was going to say normal time and date for the DEI Commission here this month, and that is it for my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Could we have Council Member Woodard?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. First, I wanted to say, I don't know if you put the agenda for the tree lighting, you're going to break some people's tradition of just making it in time. That's a long family tradition of mine. And I also wanted to just say, it just seems like the dude would live in Mountlake Terrace. So, you name the plow what you want, but I'm just saying the dude seems like he would live in Mountlake Terrace. That going forward, 22nd, I had the honor of joining Councilmember Sonmore and a lot of our seniors at our senior center's luncheon. It turned out to be their holiday luncheon. I got to learn to ask more questions. I would have came more dressed up. But it was such a wonderful, just a lovely time. The room was filled. And I bring that forward just to say that we didn't make that happen, but we could have stopped that from happening. And I was so proud that we didn't. We've done the best we can to support the senior center. That's my way of saying the Center for, Waterfront Center did a wonderful job of making it a Mountlake Terrace experience, not an Edmonds edition. So in that regard, I just thought it was a wonderful job. I was happy to be there, and the folks were happy to have me at their table. So I just met one woman who had been here basically since we incorporated, and then another woman who had just moved here after being a first responder in another state, but chose here to live out her time. That said, and I'll tie it back into our listening sessions, I think we should figure out how to do a listening session, if we don't already, with our seniors, and consider the seniors that are down in these assisted living homes in particular, so maybe actually going to their homes. And that's just my way of saying, at one point, one of the seniors shared something that literally everybody just went quiet. And I don't want to go too much deeper into that, but it was just a humbling moment. It was nothing anybody could change, so it was just receive the story, hear it, and recognize that's, the best example of that story. So imagine the stories we haven't heard. And again, that's just in the spirit of the listening sessions that we have, which we did one in this room last night, I'll get to. I would just say if we don't have the seniors in mind, we should do that. The next day, the 23rd, back-to-back, had the honor of joining Councilmember Ryan at Maverick Cares, handing out holiday pies and all that. Councilmember Ryan, I'm still in his thunder, so I'll just leave it there because he was the real rock star there. I just happened to show up. But I also, before that, made it over to our Indigenous Month that DEIC partnered with the school district to put on. I didn't get to stay the whole time, obviously, because of the timing, which is where agendas would make a big difference. That's a moving forward suggestion. But nonetheless, it was a wonderful event. Our deputy city manager was in that space as well, rocking, and just being in the space, and it was just such a wonderful gathering. The next day, I participated in Black and Edmonds, a talk about just moving forward, kind of the elections. We didn't talk specifically about the election results. We talked about family dynamics and conversations and how you move forward through the holidays. That was recorded, so if you're interested, called Black and Edmonds, won't be hard to find. It's literally called Black and Edmonds. Then on the 2nd, I participated on the advisory board for Mercy House. You recall they came to us a couple years back seeking some funding to finish their building. That building has been up and running for some time now. The vibrancy of that building is amazing. The impact they're having on the community is amazing, and I would invite us to invite them to come and just give us some updates in their spirit of listening to our community and the amazing work that they're doing. If anyone's interested, I could easily get you their minutes, if you will, because every time the advisory group comes together, it's just reporting out of all the wonderful work that they've done. And then to close it out, I mentioned last night here in this room here, we have the DEIC. I believe all that credit in terms of getting everyone in this very packed room goes to our deputy city manager, although I'm sure she's going to say, oh, no, it was everybody, but that's not how everybody else was telling me. So just give him kudos where it's due. And it's such a wonderful gathering, supported the local community. Lots of great information was coming out, but just know that those are scheduled, and I would encourage us to attend if you can. And then just this morning, attended the Economic Alliance along with the Boeing Company, and I think there's a couple of other sponsors as well that I'm forgetting who put on the legislative kickoff. And I will just say, there's a major budget shortfall. No one should be surprised by that, so that set the tenor of the conversation, but I thought it was a necessary conversation to have, and I will just say that the mayor was there as well, and if anybody else was there, I'm sorry I didn't see you, and you got shorted in terms of being announced, so no worries. That said, I will have new business that comes from the DEI listening session, but I'll wait for new business in my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Councilmember Ryan. My last few weeks have been rather full, but didn't include any official business or a regional assignment, so I'll leave you there. Had a wonderful holiday, though.
Thank you. Councilmember Sonmore. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. For my liaison report, I have nothing to report out on that because our left one and our PAC meeting are next Tuesday. And I also wanted to find out, since my emails aren't working, when is the LTAC meeting? I don't know, maybe it came up on my...
I'm not sure, but I can provide you that information after I talk with Andrew.
Is it this month?
I'm not sure.
And then, I just wanted to point out, Mountlake Terrace Theater, I think they've had a lot of budget cuts up there, but I have to say, they only had 8 students performing, and I cannot believe how their brains can hold that much information on memorizing. So kudos to them. It's always such a treat to go up there and see the theater group. They're amazing. And also, I did attend the senior lunch on the 22nd, and I met Barbara Colin and Cindy Daring. I got their business cards. They were just the loveliest people. And then I joined Steve's table for a while and met the first responder who was a nurse in Boise, because I had a conversation as we were leaving, and she just got a kidney from her sister, and just the most amazing stories and the warmest people. And a friend from high school was there with his mom, and it was a very lovely event. And I just want to remind everybody, on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, they also serve lunch. But I have to say, this turkey dinner was absolutely amazing. I couldn't believe it. It was $4, and I don't know what the other lunches are, but I plan on going to some of those. But it was truly amazing, and one of their volunteers works for the city of Edmonds, and I'm just throwing it out there, and it was announced how they're having some difficulties with their budget, and she might lose her job. But I have to say, she was a lovely lady who was volunteering, and I think they must have had like 20 volunteers there helping everybody set up, and I was very happy that we attended, and so that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Mine is in November the 23rd. I also, with Councilmember Woodard, attended the Maverick Cares, which was at the Crazy Moose Casino here in town, and handed out a couple hundred dinners for Thanksgiving. But I will admit that Councilmember Woodard did most of the running around with all the bags of pies and food and things. I just kind of orchestrated. Anyway, and I think there's nothing besides, next Tuesday's my left one, and there's going to be no Arts Commission meeting this month in December. And that's it for my report. Any questions? All right, thank you.
If I could answer Councilmember Sonmore's question. So the LTAC meeting doesn't get scheduled until the applications are all received. The application period closes on the 19th, and then those applications will be sent to the committee, and you all will collectively select a meeting date, hopefully in early January, but yeah.
Thank you. Moving on, is there any new business? Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, sir, and I'm going to correct the record. You did a lot. Quit making that up, but I do appreciate the shout out because some of that stuff was heavy. That said, from the listening session, I think it's going to make its way to you if it hasn't already, but just wanted to follow through and say I will say this through a microphone as I told them I would. The beauty of a listening session is, of course, people live in the lived life and they can tell you what's actually happening versus things you might just drive by all the time. I think most of us know there's a lot of development down on 56 to 38th, just over in that general area. Well, the street lighting over there is the next concern. It's apparently not very well lit in that general area. Now, with that level of intensity, if you will, and then the mosque is over there as well, it's a, accident waiting to happen. And recalling 20 years ago when my street fit that description, I will just say I was going to make sure I speak that into a microphone. That said, the families and the folks who brought that up were using the system. So like I say, it is somewhere captured in that voice and will come forward. So that was my request. They had a second one around parking, but I'll let that one ride because everybody's got a concern around parking. But the street lights, that impacts everybody, drivers, walkers, even the wildlife.
Thank you. Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Councilmember Ryan. I wanted to circle back to something actually that Councilmember Woodard had brought up, I think, early in our consideration process around ARPA funds, and that was e-bikes. So you may have noticed if you go south regularly in Mountlake Terrace, which I do, when you get to the county line, there's often Lime bikes down there. So you'll see them because Shoreline's in the middle of a pilot program to see how those work for their community. So they're e-bikes and e-scooters that you can rent. And so they are checking that out. And so that is a continuation of a program that's, well, maybe not the same program, but Seattle has a program with the same vendor. So it expands the area of usage significantly, but they geofence those units, which is why you'll see them sitting at the county line because they can't get into Mountlake Terrace with them because we're not part of that location. So I think in the spirit of encouraging folks to come into Mountlake Terrace through non-vehicle transportation, I would love to see if we could explore what it would look like to also consider a pilot program of some sort to see about both getting folks into our business center as well as to the light rail station and the transit center, and not leaving folks at the county line to have to trek in the rest of the way on foot. So I wanted to circle back to that as I know it's a little bit different than I think what Councilmember Woodard had hoped for when he had brought that up initially. But given that we have not put together some sort of municipal program around e-bikes, would love to see what alternatives might exist in terms of partnerships with the private sector. So would love to ask staff to take a look at that and add that to our list of items to bring back when there's capacity to do so.
Great. Any other questions? I would add on the e-bikes, I'd like to know if they have any cup holders.
They do.
Do they? They do? Awesome, because yeah, Starbucks in the morning and an e-bike. All right, that sounds really good to me. All right, any more new business?
Speaking of local coffee shops, we had a new one open, I think, while we are talking about our burgeoning private sector.
Yeah.
Just down Van Ryn Boulevard, and it was really great to see. It was lots of eager people at 7:30 in there lined up, and it's great to see new businesses sprouting in our new commercial spaces. So looks like there's even more business coming down the pike over there as well. So once we get those e-bikes, we can ride down there together.
That'd be great. Maybe sing a duet. I was wondering now, is it next to Zeke's Pizza?
It is.
Oh, awesome. You get coffee and then
Zeke's isn't open at 7.
no. Well, do you hang around and ride your e-bike until you get to lunch?
I often do.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Any other new business? I think we're at the end. Thank you very much. It's adjournment time.
Yeah.